All right, everyone. Welcome to the Demand Gen Summit 2021. We're excited to have everyone here. We've got a great array of speakers today from leading companies, industry experts. It's going to be amazing. We've also got our keynotes, and so I'm not going to take too much time because I want to get us right to Tim, who's going to share some amazing insights with us. But just want to recognize we had over 3,000 registrations and a lot of voting on our awards. So I just want to recognize our Demand Gen Award winners before we get to Tim. So here we've got our top 3 sales development reps, and these were voted on by everyone who registered. We had thousands of votes come in. So Liana with QuickBase, Austin with Go React, Chelsea with 6 Cents. Congratulations, really good job, and keep it up. Next, we've got our Demand Gen and sales leaders, Devin with Gong, Ernest with 6 Cents, and Zach with Zoom Info. Keep up the good work, guys. Congratulations on being recognized by your peers. And then our marketing and ops leaders, we couldn't do it without the ops guys. So we've got Tal, Mike, and Chris. Really good job, guys. Congratulations. And then our thought leaders, Udi, Megan. Congratulations. Really thanks for everything you guys do for the Demand Gen community. With that, I'm going to introduce our speaker, Tim. And so Tim probably doesn't need an introduction for most of you, but in case you don't know who Tim is, Tim, he's not going to brag about himself. I'm going to brag about him here for him. So he ran the digital marketing agency Site Turners, which created over 1.2 billion in documented value for their clients around the world. Clients included Google, Nestle, Facebook, Expedia, Cisco, Siemens, many more. Sold the agency to his business partners in 2019. Tim also founded and chaired the international conference series Digital Growth Unleashed, formerly the Conversion Conference, from 2010 to 2019. They've got annual conferences continuing in Vegas, London, and Berlin. Also the author of 2 best-selling books on landing page optimization with over 50,000 copies sold and translated into 6 languages. And he's got a brand new book, which I believe he's going to be sharing a lot of the insights out of that with us, called Unleash Your Primal Brain, Demystifying How We Think and Why We Act, which is available in print, ebook, and audio book. And with that, I'm going to bring in Tim and turn it over to him.
Hey, thanks, Billy. Great to be with you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're tuning in from. Yeah, as Billy mentioned, I made this weird journey. So my first book was landing page optimization. Actually, this is the second edition of that. So I'm known for conversion rate optimization. My new book is Unleash Your Primal Brain, which is about evolutionary psychology. And Billy said to me, wait, how did you get from one to the other? And I said, they're really the same thing. They're really the same thing. So today I'm going to fuse them together into one topic, which is how our brains evolved and how as you as marketers can take advantage of it. Most of that value that we created for our clients when I ran my agency was based on these durable evolutionary psychology or neuromarketing principles. And I'm going to drop a few of them on you today in this keynote. So let me start by telling you a story. The story begins a while ago, and the story is needed to explain why we need a brain. So let's go back to the very beginning, the Big Bang. Our universe came into existence about 13.8 billion years ago. That's billion with a B. Think about it. It might be not the only universe, actually. I understand there are multiverses all around it and next to it. But our particular one started with this giant explosion, and matter came into being, and all of a sudden these nuclear furnaces fired up and stars came to be out of clouds of gas. And around some of those stars, there were clumps of dirt. So if you think about the word earth, or tierra in Spanish, it actually means dirt. So here we are on our clod of dirt, living our lives, other clods of dirt's nearby. Kudos to NASA on that recent Mars lander. Actually, there were a couple of other orbiters as well. We're exploring our neighborhood, as it were. But our clod of dirt is actually important in one way. It's one of the ones that has sloshing liquid seas on it. And we lucked out because those sloshing liquid seas are not methane or something that can't support life. They happen to be water. Good news for us. So about 3.5 billion years ago on this planet, the first life came to be. You might recognize it. In fact, it's obviously still with us today. It was a virus. So what's the prerequisite for life? Life has to be able to replicate itself and copy itself. Well, viruses certainly do that very, very efficiently and have adapted to all kinds of environments, from vents in the deep pressurized depths of the ocean to spores that live on top of really high mountains, deserts, and so on. They're everywhere. But viruses weren't very sophisticated. They copy themselves, and they do that efficiently. But then there was another huge development, which was self-copying matter, but in containers. Now, if you think about a cell, it's this incredible feat of engineering. What do I mean by that? It's really a miniature city. It has garbage collection, it has a police force, manufacturing plants, power generators, and traffic control, all kinds of stuff. And it works really, really well. So I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to think about it for a few seconds, though. Why do we need a brain? There's lots of cellular life on this planet that doesn't have a brain. So why do we need one? Think about that fundamentally, because as marketers, we're the ones trying to influence people and affect their actions, and that's all done through their brain. So not all organisms that are cellular have a brain. Plants don't need a brain. Yes, they have a lot of, I guess you could say, adaptive, intelligent looking behaviors. If a tree branch falls off, sap will cover the wound. Some flowers only open in the direct heat of the sun. Others, like the pine cones on the giant redwood pine trees, will only open after a forest fire because they figure there's not a lot of competition and there's more sunlight around when that happens. So all of those are intelligent responses, but none of them can be said to need a brain. Basically, plants just do the best that they can. That's it. So I'm going to introduce you to the first organism that gives us a bit of a clue about why we need a brain. It's the humble sea squirt. And it has a two-stage life. At first, it swims along the ocean currents, and then it picks a nice rock, and it anchors itself to the rock. And do you know what the first thing it does after it anchors itself to the rock is? It eats its own brain. I'm not kidding. It digests its brain and uses the energy from that to build a permanent digestive system. And after that, food just kind of falls into its mouth. Pretty good setup. But it got rid of its brain. And in fact, there's evolutionary evidence that there have been life forms on Earth that had a brain that devolved the brain, that don't have one at all, various kinds of sea sponges and so on. By the way, quick shout out. Some of you may have watched the Academy Awards yesterday. Amazing documentary film winner. It's called My Octopus Teacher. And if you want to see another kind of alien but really advanced intelligence, consider the octopus. And by the way, stop eating those things. They're really smart and cool. My Octopus Teacher. All right, that's my movie recommendation. Let's move on. So why do we need a brain? Think about that two-stage life that the sea squirt lived. First, it floated across the currents and decided on a rock, and then it just sat there and basically acted like a plant. It wasn't moving anymore. So the very first ancestors of ours that slithered out of the sea or swam in the air, they needed a brain for the following reason. And I've made these highlight slides. You can see them later when you get the deck. Brains evolved for the challenges of moving through the environment. If something changes slowly, like the sun moving across the sky, a plant can adapt to it. But if the bear is running at you and you have to decide what to do about that situation, that's not something that you can do without a brain. All right, so now that we understand how the brain, or rather why we need them, let's talk about how the brain really works. And I'm going to bust a few myths. How many of you are familiar with the notion that you have a left brain and a right brain? Probably most of us. Well, to me, that's the same as a flat Earth idea. The Earth is not flat. I'm sorry, by the way, if that's news to you. But the logical brain and the creative brain, total bull. There's no such thing. Yes, there are specialized functions across both hemispheres of the brain, but they have this super highway of connections called the corpus callosum between them that shoots that information back and forth. So the brain isn't specialized in that way. In fact, I've done a demonstration for you just to show you our bias and how we came up with this idea. If you look at my little inset picture, I actually shave my head, and here's the bias. We're looking at the brain from the top of the head. You're welcome. I did shave my head this morning. So what's the real picture? The real picture is that it's a lot more complicated. Basically, if we explode those two hemispheres of the brain, by the way, don't try that at home. Inside of it, you'll also find the limbic system, which we share with all mammals. And underneath that, you'll find the brainstem, which we share with more ancient forms of life like reptiles. And so we call that actually our reptilian brain for that reason. Now, most life forms have these three brains, but they have different balances of them and stages of development and sophistication. So really, you don't have two brains, a creative and a logical one. You have three brains. And the first of these, we'll go from the top again. What's the cerebral cortex for? Reasoning. And most of us think, and there's this huge bias in Western civilization since the time of the ancient Greeks, most of us think that the fact that we can think logically and defer gratification and plan is our highest achievement and what makes us truly different from other types of animals. So the epitome, I guess you could say, is Mr. Spock from Star Trek. Captain, there's a 98.7% probability that we'll die in this encounter with the Klingons. Thank you, Mr. Spock. Well, it turns out the brain is not there for logical reasoning. Yes, it can do math problems like 2 + 2 is 4, and it can create microwave ovens and again send landers to Mars. That's all wonderful, but there's actually a very, very tiny percentage of people on the planet that are engaged in that. And my own personal take on it, incidentally, is that a lot of those people are your prototypical nerds or scientists or Einstein caricatures for a reason. They're considered sometimes antisocial because they might be what's called on the autistic spectrum. So they don't process social information the same way as most of the rest of us. And that gives them essentially extra capacity to think up microwave ovens and Mars landers. The rest of us, what are we doing with that information? We're spreading it around. I'm telling you about it. I'm not some rocket scientist, but I'm talking to you about the Mars lander. We spread ideas. We're highly social. So the real reason that our reasoning brain exists is to maximize our payoffs from being in a large social group while minimizing the downsides of that. So literally, the moment you stop thinking, what's 2 + 2, you go back and your brain defaults to social reasoning. That's the reason that the cerebral cortex exists. And since we have the largest group sizes among any mammals, we have a close group of about 100 to 200, usually in the past related people to us. We need to model all of the complexity of that. What are our changing power dynamics in the tribe? Who's up? Who's down? Who has alliances with whom? And so on. That's critical to our survival in the tribe. So that's the real reason for your reasoning brain. But underneath that is hardware that we share with other mammals. And this goes back almost 500 million years, not 200,000 like modern humans. And this part is about feelings. Feelings, good, bad, indifferent. In order to feel feelings and to be able to act on those feelings, we also have to remember and associate what feelings we had in a particular situation. So when I stepped on that cactus, that really hurt. Ooh, what preceded that event? Oh, I saw this green thing with spiky stuff on it. Well, in the future, if I come near that kind of setting again, I'm going to be much more careful. So in order to take advantage of the feelings, we also have to remember them. So feelings and memories, especially memories, are formed in very strong emotional situations. I'll give you an example. You probably remember your first kiss. Do you remember your 100th kiss? Yeah, probably not so much. Yeah, another tongue down my throat. Okay, great. You don't remember it because it's not novel. It's not unique. It didn't make a first impression on you. So whatever calibrates your scale, those strong emotional reactions, those stick with you. And even I've heard skydivers, people that jump out of working airplanes on purpose, they still don't feel the same rush. They don't remember their 100th jump. They remember their first much more. And underneath all that is our reacting brain. This is the reptilian part. You don't need to know that if something is attacking you to fight back or run away, and I'll talk about that a bit later. But this is the part that works completely below your consciousness. You didn't probably have to worry about keeping your heart beating last night as you slept. Right now, you're sitting there, you're actually digesting food without any conscious thought. Now, you may bring your conscious awareness to certain bodily functions like your rate of breathing and doing intentional things like meditation. But should you stop thinking about your breath, it still continues as long as you're alive. So really, the bottom line is we have three brains working together: reacting, feeling, and reasoning about our social environment. So let's take a deeper dive into this primal brain so we understand it better. What are some of the characteristics of it? One is it's lazy. It's a very expensive machinery to operate. I'll talk about that in a bit, but we don't like to think. We like to do things automatically. And again, this is starting to be stuff that marketers can take advantage of. So we have a very lazy brain. Another characteristic is we like simple choices. Which is the big dog, the one on the left or the one on the right? Now you're probably laughing. Hey, Tim, it's pretty obvious. It's the one on the right. And that's my point. It's obvious. But do we take advantage of that as marketers? No, we do things like this. Well, our SaaS software costs only $10 a month, or you can prepay for a year for only $100. Now, was that a simple choice? No, it wasn't. I went into marketing to avoid math. I don't want to do division and figure out that $100 a year is a better deal. That is not activating my emotional brain and my obvious black and white thinking. Which one's a better deal? It's not a big dog, small dog situation. It's I have to think about it with my conscious mind. That's no bueno, no good. So the brain likes simple choices. It's also very impatient. Specifically in the context of websites, we know that people form a visual first impression of a website within, I'm going to let you guess, in your mind, come up with a number. How many seconds does it take to form a visual first impression of a web page you're looking at? You're probably guessing too high. My guess is very few of you are guessing 50 milliseconds. That's 1/20th of a second, an eye blink, literally. In 1/20th of a second, we've decided whether the site's professional, whether it's cheesy, where it lies on that continuum, and whether we're going to interact with the site and convert or not. So that first impression is really critical, and our brain is really good at processing visual information. So to sum it up, people are lazy, impatient, and like simple choices. Now I'm going to do a quick substitution here. I'd like you, if you're taking notes, to strike out the word people and say visitors to our website are lazy, impatient, and like simple choices. That's the way you operate when you get to other people's websites. So why do you think everybody coming to your site is not like that? Why do you think that they're going to stick around for your rotating banner ads or read your detailed copy or watch that 37-minute video to understand something? They're not. They're just like you, lazy, impatient, and like simple choices. So that was the medium part of the brain. Let's dive down into the reptilian part. The reptilian part cares about what I call the 4 F's. And these are automatic survival level responses. Again, if that bear's attacking you, you have to survive. And even though it's got bigger claws and teeth, you still have to fight for your life. Hopefully you'll come out on top and alive. But if not, hopefully in the middle of that fight or even earlier, you'll take another possible response, which is flight. That's right. Run away. Run away is always a good strategy if you're faster, because you can live to fight another day and survive the attack. That's always a good option. What else do we care about? I've already mentioned that the brain is a very energy intensive system. So one of the things that we're always looking for is food, feeding. And I'm sorry for some of you in the morning if I'm grossing you out here. Americans are, we take things to their illogical extreme. This man ate 64 chili dogs in 2 minutes. Yes, competitive eating. Don't do this at home either. So feeding those very, very important. We're motivated by hunger. We lived on the knife edge of survival, and we were really good at finding food. In fact, intermittent fasting is something that works for the following reason. If we didn't find food today, our brain actually grows new neurons. One of the few times it does that in our life, to get smarter and find us food tomorrow. So that's the basis of the effectiveness of intermittent fasting. It's not for better health, it's for better brain health and longevity from that standpoint. So there's all kinds of variations on that theme, but feeding is a very central activity for us. And finally, I just realized they have 2 slides with frogs. I had the one earlier slithering out of the ocean. Finally, there's the 4th F. I'm sure you can guess what it is. Yes, indeed, it's fornication. That's right, fornication. We're very concerned with propagating our genes. You may think of yourself as an organism. You may think of yourself as a distinct person. Your brain is telling you that's what you are. But in fact, you're not. You're a collection of genes that's trying to reproduce itself. That's it. The genes are what's stable. You as an individual, whatever characteristics you have, your short, tiny little life doesn't matter. The genes are this immortal thing that propagates itself. That's what life is. It's at the genetic level. So the genes were tricky enough to come up with a brain to help themselves reproduce. So one of the highest stakes events that all life has is to reproduce. And we're willing to do a lot under the circumstances of a mating opportunity. In fact, for human beings, it's been shown that men in particular are actually more willing to take risks and make worse decisions in the presence of some kind of mating opportunity. So I'm sure all of you have been to the kind of prototypical cheesy car mechanic garage where they have the girly calendars on the walls. Or well, there's a reason for that. That's a very primal thing, especially for men. And it's something most marketers know about, which is why they use a lot of pictures of attractive women in advertising of various kinds. It actually makes us less logical, less likely to use good common sense, and more risk tolerant, because it represents to our little itty bitty brains a potential mating opportunity, even if it's just a picture on a website. All right, so having said all that, what do all those things have in common? They work automatically. You never learn. It's the same thing over and over. These instinctual responses were developed, and they're good enough. 98% of the time, they work as intended. So we don't have to think about them. We just put them into play instantly. So our primitive brain, to sum it up, cares about fight, flight, feeding, and fornication. Some other things as well, but basically it's the keeping the lights on level. So think of it that way. All right, I'm going to pause here for a second. You're probably thinking, well, Tim, thanks for the history of the universe and the biology lesson, but I'm a marketer. What does this have to do with me? Well, this second part of the presentation is going to take this information and make it useful to you in your everyday job. I'm going to give you some strategies that are durable and work in a lot of circumstances. In fact, most of that value that my former agency Site Tuners created for clients was based on these durable neuromarketing principles. The first one is doing nothing. What do I mean by that? Well, our great ape cousins, on average, use about 8% of their resting metabolism to power their brains. So it's a very expensive energy system in the body. You know, you have respiration, digestion, voluntary movement. But if you just laid there all day on your back, for an ape, that's going to be 8% of your energy is going just to power that little brain. For humans, it's a quarter of our resting metabolism. It's 3 times as much. Think about how bizarre that is. 3 times the energy expenditure of a chimp or of a gorilla or an orangutan. 3 times as much. It's a really disproportionate energy system. We borrow energy from other parts of our body in order to enable our brain to function at all. For example, we have much weaker muscles, so it takes less energy to maintain our bodies. We delay the growth of our bodies until our teenage years so we can focus on wiring up a very plastic brain that can learn from its environment. But basically, we try to keep our brain on standby. The brain is an ignoring machine. Its default response is to do nothing and to conserve energy. Because think about it, if it decides to do something, that also means you have to move the body, perhaps. And that's additional energy expenditure in addition to just powering the brain. So I'm going to say this again. The default response of the brain is to do nothing and conserve energy. Now, how can you take advantage of that as a marketer? Well, we don't think about it, but what happens on your website or in your business if I do nothing? What is that path of least resistance? Are you making that your most profitable thing? What's the default in your business? I'll give you a quick example. In California, where I live, we have on our driver's license an organ donor donation little button. You can choose to be an organ donor. And in some countries in Europe, I believe Austria is one of them, they actually have a different process. You're by default an organ donor unless you opt out of being an organ donor. Now, we can probably agree that organ donation is a social good. It helps other people survive. It helps society as a whole. You're giving to others when you don't need ostensibly the organs anymore. So what's the outcome difference? Well, it turns out in California, only 10 to 15% of people will donate their organs or will choose to do that. In Austria, it's the reverse. About 85% of people are organ donors. What did they do? They said the default is to donate your organs. So I have a question for you. What are you doing in your business that's the default? What's the easiest thing? The one that requires nothing on my part. What happens in your default flow? Also, you're probably familiar with this as well. About the most powerful companies on the planet are all on a subscription model. Because you don't have to do anything to renew every month. It's not like you get an email saying, please renew monthly. And by the way, many of you might have monthly plans versus annual. But it's so much easier to do this on an auto subscribe model. And that's the companies like the phone company are on auto subscribe. The Netflix is on auto subscribe. All of them have monthly subscriptions and they don't ask you to do anything. They just charge your bank account. You've given them the permission for your own selfish reasons to do nothing. And for the convenience of that, you're paying a lot of money. Let's talk about another strategy, and that is pain avoidance as motivation. I hear a lot of marketers saying that they're not going to say negative things, especially in large companies. That's off brand for us. We don't say stuff about our competitors. We don't say anything negative. Well, that's great. It's not in our style guide. It's not in our brand book. Well, too bad for you. You're fighting with both hands tied behind your back. So the thing to understand is that we evolved to look for threats in our environment. Our brains are there to detect survival threats. So pain and loss motivate us a lot. I'm sure some of you have burned your hand on a hot stove before. Hopefully you haven't done it more than once, but that's going to motivate you. Let me give you a quick scenario. Let's pick your favorite flavor of ice cream. Mine happens to be pistachio. And here's the value proposition. Here's a bowl of your favorite ice cream. I'm going to give it to you. But first, as you reach for that bowl, I'm going to whack you on the back of the hand with a hammer. Just once. Not too hard either. Just a nice whack on the back of the hand. Won't break any bones. What do you say? Well, most people would say no. No, I mean, you have to be a real fan of pistachio ice cream to take that hammer strike as on the way in. Most of us would say no. And yet we're not motivating people with negativity. Instead, we're saying life is wonderful. You're going to fart rainbows and life will be great. You'll be taller, better looking, and rich and thin and all those wonderful things that traditional advertising promises us. But that's actually not the way to go. Let me give you a quick hypothetical. Let's say you're selling some kind of tooth whitening product. Well, one thing you can do is say, you're going to have white teeth and you're going to look better and so on. And yeah, that might sell some of your product. But what about this? Oh my God, Tim, you have yellow teeth and you're afraid to smile. In fact, people think you have resting bastard face because you won't ever smile. And you have a hard time getting dates or making connections with people, and you're going to die alone with your 3 cats. Now think about that. What's going to motivate my do nothing brain to get off of its comfortable spot and do something? Is it the appeal of whiter teeth, or is it the full implications of the price that I'm about to pay by not doing that course of action and changing something? So pain avoidance is approximately twice as powerful, 2.5 to 3 times in some cases, as powerful as positive motivation. If that's not in your playbook, you have a problem. So here's some things to consider. Don't sell the positive outcomes first. The value of your solution depends on the amount of pain you can create for me. No pain, no gain, just like in the gym. If you can't create pain, you can't financially benefit or gain from it. So you should really focus on the pain and amplify it. And one additional quick tip, some of you may have plans or options, let's say a bronze, silver, and gold plan in that order. Start with the reverse. Do gold, silver, bronze. There's a famous experiment about pizzas. Imagine a $5 cheese pizza, and you can add up to 5 toppings rather. So you could have a $10 fully loaded pizza. Now they sold it for 2 different ways. One is to start with the $10 pizza and you subtract $1 for each of the 5 toppings, or you can start with the cheese pizza at 5 and add toppings for $1 each. Same outcome, but not the same results. It turns out the average order value is much higher when you start with the fully loaded pizza, because now you're thinking, oh yeah, I love this pizza. Oh man, if I take away, the anchovies, I mean, I'd save $1, but I really like anchovies on my pizza. I know that's weird, but I do. Think about that. There's this loss activation that's happening versus saying, oh, here's a cheese pizza. I'd love to add anchovies. I like them, but $1, that's financial pain in your brain. That's actually mapped to the same place as physical and emotional pain, financial pain. We don't have a special box for it in the brain. So you're thinking of it as a loss of a resource, a loss. And so you're much more averse to losses. So it turns out you get a much higher average order value by starting with your fully loaded product. You can also make it ridiculously expensive if you don't intend to sell it, just as an anchor. So it serves double duty. It focuses you on all the things you lose as you step down to the next package, and also anchors you to a high value item to calibrate you in the first place. All right, let's talk about another strategy, ownership. I'm going to introduce you to your great grandfather. You ready? Here he was, 200,000 years ago on the plains of East Africa. That's where we all originated. Now imagine great-great-grandpa's life. He wandered around in a group, probably no more than 100 to 200 people, and you had to carry everything because you're following food sources, looking for changing weather patterns, digging things up out of the dirt, drinking water when you could find it, all of this stuff. So what would you carry? I want you to think about this. If you're in that environment with great-great-grandpa, what would you carry? Weapons? Yeah. Maybe something on your feet if they weren't tough and calloused already. Water for sure, because that's hard to find. That drooling baby that can't even walk yet, you'd sling it over your shoulder or something, carry it around while it cries. You had to do that. But imagine if you found a nice sharp rock. And this is a good one. It fits in your hand, and it could be used to skin animals or chop wood or a number of different things. It would be a really useful tool. You can use it as a weapon as well. But my question to you, and this is not a silly question, it's really profound. Would you pick up that rock and carry it? It's a high-risk activity to carry something. Why do I say that? Because it requires energy, and you have to carry it forever. And you don't know whether down the road there's going to be a whole field of shale with sharp rocks in it, or you're going to be walking into some kind of desert environment where there's not even another sharp rock around for hundreds of miles. You don't know. And you have to make that high stakes decision about whether to carry that rock. So if we chose to carry things, it was a big deal. They were really important to us. Now, as most of you know, we don't live in that society anymore. We live in a world with almost 8 billion people on it. We certainly can store things. We can go to the grocery store and bring home a full trunk load of groceries for the week, put them in our refrigerator so they don't spoil. We've probably filled up our closets in our house and our garages, and we've started renting storage units. That's pretty much known to be a recession-proof industry. People like to store their crap. And by the way, the stuff in our storage units isn't worth nearly the amount of money that you've probably paid to pay for that storage unit over the years. I know this from personal experience. So you could go to Target or Walmart and buy the same stuff in new, unbroken condition, and yet we're storing it because of this misfiring of our evolutionary machinery. We value things that we own. We overvalue the things that we own or have a chance to influence. So ownership is a really, really powerful motivation. What can you do with it as a marketer? Well, here's some things to consider. Let people try your product or service. If you have a trial, make it longer. Don't be so stingy, because if I actually work it into my daily habits or I start to use it, I'm not going to give it back, as it were. There are a lot of these online mattress companies, you're probably familiar with them, and say, here, we'll send you your nice memory foam mattress and you can sleep on it 90 days risk-free. And to return it, no questions asked if you don't like it. Well, think about the reality of that. A 90-day guarantee, risk-free. What did you do when you got that mattress? Well, you pushed your old one off into the corner of the bedroom, leaned it up against the wall, it's probably covering something. You started sleeping on the new mattress, and every day when you wake up, you see that ugly old stained mattress with the broken springs sitting up against the wall of your bedroom. After about a week, you're like, I love this new mattress. I'm going to get rid of that old junker and throw it out. And that's what you do. So the longer you let people test drive it, the better off you are. And it gives people a sense of ownership. The same thing when you are buying a new car, the first thing a good salesman will do at the dealer is say, oh, you like that one? Hey, let's take it for a test drive. Let me just go get the keys. And when you're driving that car, you're trying it on for size. You're imagining what it would be like to actually enjoy the full benefits of that car. Another thing you can do is actually let someone customize or configure it. The value of that is they're, again, envisioning how they would use it in their environment. So if you're buying a laptop or something, well, how much memory do you want? Do you want a bigger screen? Do you want this software preloaded on it? They're asking you all these questions in the form of a wizard, but really what you're doing is you're putting skin in the game and investing in it and imagining what it's like to use it as it's properly configured. And finally, I said earlier that we are, overvalue ownership or something that gives us the illusion of control. That's very important. There was a famous sociological study where people bought raffle tickets, and there were two ways that they were given these raffle tickets. In one case, they were just handed a raffle ticket. They were just given one. In the other case, they were able to pick it out from a fan of raffle tickets. That's it. And then they went back to the people and they said, hey, others want to join the raffle and all the tickets have been sold. Would you consider selling yours back? And how much would you want for it? So for the $1 that they paid for the raffle ticket, there's also the fun of playing, the chances of actually winning. And it turned out that people that were handed their ticket wanted $1.67 to sell their ticket back. So that 67 cents accounts for all of that fun of playing, chances of winning stuff. The people that had to pick one out of a fan, they wanted over $5 for that same raffle ticket. What's the difference? The illusion of control. They got to select their ticket. It's the same reason you'll find in the lottery that when you get to pick your numbers, more people play. Oh, I want to put my birth date in as my numbers. Great. Are the chances of you winning any more or any higher because you picked those particular numbers? No, it's a completely random draw. And yet you feel more attached to that. And that's taking advantage of the power of ownership. So try these things in your business. Think about where they apply. Let's talk about our visual system. I'm going to give you just a quick side note biology lesson here. I want you to do a couple of things real quick. The first is hold your hand out at arm's length. You can see me in the picture there, and look at your thumbnail. Now, if you focus on your thumbnail, the rest of the room is actually out of focus because we only have 2 degrees of visual arc to be able to process color and fine detail. Now, do another test. Put your arms out to the sides, look straight ahead, and then when you have your arms fully to the sides, wiggle your fingertips forward. Look straight ahead. You should be able to detect the motion. In fact, you should have 220 degrees of visual arc to detect motion. And that's so you can see the bear running at you, the bear that's coming from the left or from the right. So 2 types of vision, rods and cones. Here's the reality of how our visual system works. Most of our world is grayscale and blurry. And then our eye does these very sophisticated movements and looks for different things in the environment, points of interest. These automatic, super quick eye movements, you can't even detect them, are called saccades. And so we think as we look at different parts of the scene is that we're actually seeing this, a full color, high resolution movie. No, you're not. This is one of the best magic tricks ever. Our brains construct 98% of our visual reality. We're only seeing through that really, really narrow 2% in full color and detail. The brain is filling in the rest, and it's moving the eyes to focus on extracting the most information it can out of our environment. Vision is actually not passive. You have 10 times as many neurons going from the brain to control the movement of the eyes than coming back from the eyes to process that incoming visual information. So one of the things that I want you to focus on is a concept I developed when I ran Sight Tuners, which is the visual hierarchy. You ready? At the bottom of the visual hierarchy is text. Yes, certain words are very, very powerful. Sale, new, there's again evolutionary reasons that those will trigger us. But you put a picture next to some words, we're not going to be reading the text. We're going to be looking at the picture, because we're designed to process information visually, whereas words are conceptual. Access to language is actually only in our conscious part of the brain. The brain that's really making the decisions, the primal brain, doesn't have access to language. So it's looking at powerful images, again, for cues about what's important in the environment. But even stronger than static images is motion. Motion. So here's the visual hierarchy. It's text, graphics, and motion. And motion is like the nuclear option of last resort. It will be a giant explosion that blows away anything in its immediate environment. So you have to be really, really careful with it. So as you design your web experiences, think about this. Get rid of anything that moves. Look, unless you're an event organizer and you want to say, here's the experience of being at our event. Here's all the networking, the fun after parties, the engaged people, the physical environment, that's great. You should not have any motion or video on your pages unless they're, how would you say, I guess, initiated by the visitor. It's okay to have explanatory videos, but you can't just drop a background video loop into your pages. A lot of you have one. And again, I don't care if it's banners, I don't care if they slide or dissolve or go from one frame of your, pardon me, stupid commercial to another. The point is it's motion and it's hijacking my attention. We can't not look at motion. It's the bear running to eat us. We have to react to things moving in our visual field. That also applies to graphics. Are you just decorating with your static images? Are they too strong for the environment? Often the answer is yes. And then you go in the wrong direction with your calls to action. They're usually very subtle. I know the thing right now with web design is to have these little outline buttons and have the background image showing through them. So it's just this little white key line. Well, you know what? Not enough emphasis. So you have to flip the script. What if you made your button twice as big? What if you toned down your graphics? What if you, and you should, got rid of all motion on the page unless it was absolutely necessary to get your point across? Those are things you should be thinking about. Visual hierarchy, text, graphics, motion. Consciously control the attention on your page by getting that balance right and de-emphasizing the really obnoxious loud stuff like videos and powerful graphics. All right, I want to talk about one final strategy and then we'll get to the Q&A. I'm really looking forward to that. And that is the power of free. Now, as I mentioned before, we're very social mammals. We're hyper social, in fact. And the power of free is important because we actually operate in two different spheres. One is the relational sphere and one is the transactional sphere. In the relational sphere, we're dealing with close people, people we know, with whom we have ongoing relationships. So imagine you came to dinner post-COVID to someone's house. You'd probably bring a gift or maybe a bottle of wine or something like that. And you would be expected to. You'd have to be a real heel not to bring a gift when you're invited to someone's home. Here's the really important thing about gift giving from our evolutionary perspective. Giving someone a gift obligates the receiver. Let me say that again. Giving someone a gift obligates the receiver. They're obligated to give you something of equal or greater value back. That $8 bottle of Costco wine, they're feeding you a whole nice dinner. It costs a lot more than $8, I promise you. And that's just your portion of wine because you probably drink it. So it costs a lot more than $4. My point is that if we didn't reliably give back something of equal or greater value, this whole cooperative pro-social nature that we've evolved for would break down. And it doesn't, because giving gifts obligates the receiver. So take advantage of that. And as soon as you do, as soon as you step out of that realm, you're in a different world. You're in the transactional world. This is where we deal with strangers, people we don't know, people we may never see again. Let me give you a quick example. Let's say that someone comes to you and said, hey, you're an expert in online marketing. I could really use your help. I know you normally charge $1,000 an hour for your consulting, but can you do it for me for $100 an hour? Here's the same scenario. Same friend comes to you and says, hey, I know you're a marketing expert. Could you just give me an hour of your time and help me out because I could really use your help? Well, here's the irony. I know that you're more likely to help for free than for that $100. Now, from a rational economic standpoint, it makes no sense because you're way better off with $100 an hour than $0 an hour for that same time you spent. But what you've done is you've activated the transactional sphere. By mentioning money, you've made me think you're a really cheap SOB and that I'm not going to help you because you don't value me. You made it transactional. As soon as you bring money into the picture, it increases people's independence, their selfishness. It makes them less likely to help others. So as you play around with your business model, think about what you can offer for free. It's much more powerful than low price. Consider testing free versus low cost offers. Allow free trials. As I mentioned, trials are powerful. Make them as long as you can and figure out what else you can give me as a free gift. Maybe it's a download or access to a video or advanced notification of a sale or free shipping, which you can just include by charging me more anyway. So all of these are grounded in very deep evolutionary psychology principles. And I just want to leave you with one final thought, and that is, it's not about the technology. Look, it's social media this, it's virtual reality that, it's whatever it is, I know, hologram suppositories tomorrow. It doesn't matter what the technology is. It's not about the technology. It's about the evolutionary psychology. You want a long, durable career in online marketing? Understand what you're trying to influence, and that is the human brain. And by retracing its evolutionary arc, you can understand better how to influence people. Billy already talked about my background. This will all be in the deck, blah, 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 big clients. I want to tell you a little bit real quick about my book. If you're interested in it, it's not a marketing book. It's an evolutionary psychology book. It's the operating system for all 8 billion of us on the planet. So if you're interested in this, it's available everywhere. I'm going to give you a free chapter of your choice. So go to primalbrain.com/book, look at the table of contents, pick a chapter, fill out the quick form, and I'll email you a PDF of that chapter of the book. If you like this keynote, a lot of it is also in my new LinkedIn neuromarketing course with some other materials. So if you have access to LinkedIn Learning, check it out. Just go to primalbrain.com/course or look up neuromarketing on LinkedIn. And finally, Chat Funnels was kind enough to create this limited offer. I do these internet strategy consultations, which I give unconditional guarantees on if you don't like them. And what Chat Funnels is doing for the first 3 companies that do $1 million or more online in annual revenue, they're subsidizing these internet strategy consultations. So instead of $2,500, they're only $999 for the first 3 qualified companies. So check that out at primalbrain.com/chatfunnels. And at this point, I'm going to just put up my stay connected slide. And Billy, I'd love to take some questions from the audience.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Tim. And I'd encourage everyone, go sign up for the free consultation. A lot of value there. Primalbrain.com/chatfunnels.
Well, it's not quite free, but it's discounted, as you mentioned.
Discounted. Yeah. A lot of value there. So also, if you missed that, just chat into the chat bot and we'll send you that link as well. Okay. So Tim, I loved it. Tons of great things. I was taking notes. I've had a lot of questions come in through the chat bot, and I'm just going to, we've got about 10, 15 minutes, and we're going to hit as many as we can. So the first question actually is kind of on your power of free that I really liked. So the chat in says, your gift approach is common in Japanese culture. Have you tested different gift values to see amounts that drive website offers?
The value isn't as important, and it's not just restricted to the Japanese culture. It's more refined there. But even, say you're in Afghanistan, 3 cups of tea, you take a total stranger that comes to your village, you have to protect them. There was a famous movie about some special forces guys, and they got stranded in Afghanistan, and the local villagers saved the guy because of this hospitality reciprocity thing against the Taliban incursion that was happening. So this is universal. It's not just Japanese. The amount doesn't matter. Back in the old days, when I used to go to the airport, they used to let Hare Krishnas solicit. And they're like, here, sir, have a nice paper flower. Oh, can you give me your spare change? Well, that flower cost about a cent, maybe. They just made it out of a piece of paper. They got 50 cents or all your loose change for that. Much higher value. So this works at any scale, in any culture. And it's not, I think, that important how much of a gift you offer. It's the fact that you're doing the gift that obligates the other person. And again, their response, and Robert Cialdini's done a lot of work on this, is disproportionately bigger. They give you something sometimes orders of magnitude more value back.
Awesome. So let me dig in a little bit on that. Like in a SaaS setting, I know a lot of our attendees are working at SaaS companies. We give people a free trial or a freemium version of the product often, but is that just as powerful, or is it more powerful to say, hey, we're going to send you a free t-shirt or, a gift card or a mug, whatever it is?
Yeah, that's great. So the tangible gifts versus the intangible. So on the software or SaaS side, the thing I would say is give them unlimited access. Don't castrate your product offering. Limit the time. What you want to do is build in the habit of them using your software. And after a month or two, all you've done is delayed your revenue recognition, but they're actually more tied to you because they've made it part of their workflow and daily habits. So don't be stingy about the length of your free trials, and don't castrate them. Let them experience the full value of all the features. And then the loss aversion kicks in, like I mentioned, and they don't want to lose the access to it. Sorry, There was a second part to that question. Can you remind me real quick?
Yeah, is it more powerful to do the free trial and give them everything, or to send them something physical? Like
the physical thing. So I think that we're living in this low touch world. It's highly automated. We're always talking about doing stuff at scale, right? Well, that means no personal touch, or drop ship from somewhere, even if it's a gift. One of the most effective things we did if you have a high ticket, when I ran my agency, we'd get a new client. We'd secretly contact their coworkers or family, and we'd find out their interest in stuff. We'd have them send a couple of pictures to us, and we made really high quality custom bobblehead dolls. Like one guy was a jujitsu guy, so we made him in a gi. And we didn't put Site Tuners, my agency name, on the base of it or anything. We just sent them this about $150 high quality bobblehead. And they're going to put that on their shelf. And that's such a personal touch. So if you have something expensive, that personal touch really works well. Take the care to find out about them. That's really important. Don't, again, have a drop shift or signed by everybody on our team. Here's your little Christmas gift basket. I get a lot of those. It's just like, thanks for the candy. I throw the box out. I don't think about the company again.
Yep. All right. Okay. So I've got a bunch of questions and we don't have a ton of time, but one that came in a few times in different ways is just along the lines of, is the best way to increase website conversion that the pain approach that you outlined?
Absolutely. Don't shy away from it. Rub salt into the wound. Again, your goal is to overcome not your competitors, quote unquote, but the status quo bias. My brain saying do nothing. I'm staying on this path. It's a sunk cost. I don't have to think or change anything. So to get me off that comfortable spot, you basically have pleasure, upside, and pain, downside. And pain works, as I mentioned, much more effectively. So for example, we did this landing page for Dropbox Business, and we had like a before and after. They were talking about like collaborate workflow with everyone. And we just said, here's a column of before and after. Can't attach files. Don't know which version's the latest one. Confused about who's seen what. And then here's life with Dropbox Professional, and all those problems go away. So you have to create a polarization and a contrast. And the only way to do that is to show them the full implications of staying on their current path, negative implications.
All right. And then follow-up question is do you have a couple examples? You shared one with the Dropbox, but do you have any other examples that you're like, hey, this is done really well that you really like that you've seen?
Not offhand, but the principle of loss avoidance or pain avoidance is universal. Again, it's anywhere from 2 to about 2.5, sometimes 3 times as powerful. So you don't have to say mean things about your competitors and say they suck, but you can certainly have me envision what life is like without your product or service. And nothing says you can't go negative there.
Okay. All right. Next question is, have you seen someone use loss activation in product packaging in software or things like that, like your pizza example?
Absolutely. Most of you, if you own software, have a plans page. Again, silver, gold, bronze. So the right thing to do, and we've tested this over and over and over with our clients, so it's pretty close to gospel truth. Go gold, silver, and bronze. On the gold column, the very first one that they anchor on, you put all of your features and benefits. And then on the silver column, you say you get everything on the gold, except you lose the following. So you don't tell them the stuff they still get to keep. You focus on the loss. And then in the bronze column, you lose an even much longer list of stuff from the gold version. So that's the way to structure it. Gold, silver, bronze, full value, all the features on the gold one, and then what you lose in the other 2 columns.
Okay. So rather than, typically most of these pricing pages, when you look at them, it's like, here's the features, in the base package. And you'll move to the right, and it's like everything in, the bronze package plus this.
Right.
Then the next one, everything in bronze and silver plus this. So rather than that, start on the left with the full list of everything.
Yep. And a high price, which will make everything else look cheaper anyway. Also, that's anchoring.
Yep. And then just, hey, list out not what you get in the other package, but what you lose from the first one.
Exactly.
Okay. Awesome. I love it. I don't see a lot of people doing that. Okay. So we got a couple other questions I want to get to. So the next one is, does your image and motion approach impact the way we should be doing presentations of products?
Well, if it's an unscripted presentation, I'm not saying you shouldn't. So the short answer is no. What I'm saying is on a page, you shouldn't do that. If you want to have an explanatory video to explain a complex product, great, do that if that's something that helps your sale. I'm just saying, don't be so enamored with your own web page that you're going to put background motion loops on it. It's like, oh, it's us in our pre-COVID offices, and we're having fun and drinking kombucha, and there's a yoga nap room, and it's like, I don't care about the office space of your company. I'm sorry, but I've seen so many of those. I could puke.
Okay. Next one is, how do you use these concepts in context of more of an account-based approach versus an individual approach, and who you sell to?
Great question. I don't believe there's a difference between B2B and B2C. We all have a brain. That's the point. These are universal, absolutely universal principles. The only thing that's different about B2B is that there's the product or personal risk, and then there's the organizational risk, right? So if I buy Tic Tacs at 7-Eleven, I don't like them, whatever. That's $1 that it costs me. If I buy the wrong CRM for my company, and the implementation goes haywire, I'm going to lose my job and the company's screwed. So what you have to do in a B2B setting is address that personal impact and the organizational impact, which means that you should have subsites or pages for each of the roles. There's the end users, there's the people maintaining the system, there's the CFO that cares about the life cycle cost of it and the switching cost from whatever you currently have. So you need to say, hey, Ms. CFO, go here. Here's everything you need. And that addresses them. So the only difference is that there are more stakeholders, but you should still have tailored things based on these principles for each of those stakeholders.
Okay. And then they just, same person chatted in with a follow-up. Should we use different approaches based on the individual's role in a company?
Absolutely. That's exactly what I'm saying. So what's their relationship to the sale? You should say, who are you? Your homepage should be, raise your hand, who are you? Not what plans we have, or watch the video or schedule a demo. It's I'm the end user, I'm the person maintaining it. I'm the CFO, whatever. Let them do role-based self-selection. That's your homepage navigation, in addition to trust and other important elements right there.
Okay. And then the last question before we wrap up is, what do you think is the best way to replicate the 90-day mattress return example in SaaS? Is it a free trial or month-to-month contracts or something else?
No, to just have a really long trial. Some of you have a week, some of you have 3 weeks, especially if it's a big system. I have to import data in it, get it set up to understand the value. Just let me use it for 6 freaking months or something. It doesn't matter.
Right.
All it does is delay revenue recognition, but it increases conversion rate and loyalty because it becomes part of my reality, my workflow, my habits, and how I run my company.
Awesome. Okay, Tim, that's all the questions. That everything else is kind of just another iteration of those that I'm seeing come in. Dude, amazing presentation. Thank you so much for being part of the Demand Gen Summit. This has been great. I've been taking notes. I'm going to watch this again. It'll be available for the next 30 days here at demandgensummit.com. And come back, watch it. Once again, thank you, Tim.
Absolutely. And again, just a quick reminder, you'll make the slides available, get your free sample chapter of the book. And if you're eligible for that, that discounted internet strategy consultation, do that soon rather than later. It was a lot of fun.
Away.
Thank you, Billy.
Okay. Thank you, Tim.